Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. Well, at least those opposite are consistent. The Turnbull government is at least consistent, going after the poor in the Australian community, the disadvantaged, those on benefits and pensions. They're consistent in doing that while completely ignoring the big end of town who put the big donations into the Liberal and the National Party to fund their election campaigns, ignoring multi-national tax evasion that goes on completely unabated, trying to create transparency around Mr Turnbull's companies and others that were on the secret list before it got published, and yet hell-bent on making poor Australians and Australians on low incomes pay a big fat new tax, a massive 5% increase in the GST that will go on to absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. And it just demonstrates how out of touch the Turnbull government are, that they simply don't appreciate that those on low incomes or fixed incomes spend all of their income on day-to-day living expenses: food, rent, health, pharmaceuticals, school costs and so on. Takes up all of their pay or all of their benefit in a way that those on higher incomes, and particularly politicians in this place, do not spend the whole of their income on day-to-day living expenses. And those opposite who go on and on about let's put everything on the table but focus on a GST have no idea what it is like to walk in the shoes of someone on a low income. We've got cleaners in Parliament House this week taking a strike against the government because of their failure to make sure that those cleaners got a decent wage increase, but before that they ripped money out of their pockets. We've seen every move that this government has made which is designed to really hit Australians doing it tough. And this proposal, which is definitely on the table, it's not ruled out, it's definitely on the table. It was shopped around well and truly by Mr Abbott before he lost the Prime Ministership. We have not had Mr Turnbull come out and say it is not off the table. We haven't had that categorical denial. And we've had Mr Turnbull on the radio in Adelaide saying that his view is that changes to the GST should be on the table. And of course, what would Mr Turnbull have in common with a low-income earner, a cleaner cleaning his office? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He probably hasn't noticed that they're not here this week. Well, I have, and I stand with those Parliament House cleaners. They deserve a decent pay rise, and they certainly do not deserve a big, fat, whopping GST applied to every single thing they do. The other group that I met with today are seafarers from the MV Portland. Again, not a single word from those opposite about the plight of those seafarers who've been sacked by Alcoa. They've worked on Australian seas for 25 years. 25 years, not one day lost to industrial action. And what's Alcoa done? One flick of the pen, they've sacked them. And guess what? They're going to be replaced with foreign workers earning $2 an hour. Do those opposite care? No, they don't. They do not. I met a seafarer today, 20 years at sea. He's now lost a job. And do they care? No. And they bleat on every day about how they're creating jobs and how they're making Australians better off. Well, they're not making seafarers better off, and they're not making cleaners better off. And on top of denying them wage increases and sacking them, letting Alcoa sack Australian seafarers and do nothing about it, they want to impose a big, fat new tax of 15% on every single thing that those workers buy, every single thing. Well, it is not on. It is not on. And it is time that the Turnbull government acted in the interests of all Australians, not just those at the big end of town. It is time that we had some multinational tax transparency in this country. It is time that multinationals and those who earn a very big income, a much bigger income than a cleaner on $20 an hour, started paying their fair share, started actually contributing. But no, the Turnbull government, no wonder some of the states are calling for a GST, because the Turnbull government is starving them of funds. The massive cuts to education, which were not signed off by the Australian public, the massive cuts to health, which were not signed off by the Australian government. All of those funds have been taken away from state governments, whether they're Liberal governments or Labor governments. They're all in the same boat, and they're desperate to provide those services. And yet we have day in, day out those opposite the Turnbull government absolutely refusing to categorically state they will not introduce a big fat new GST, a GST of 15% on everything, on food, on health, on education, on pharmaceuticals, on school goods, for cleaners on $20 an hour, and for seafarers from Victoria, who those opposite have no concern for, Australian seafarers who've been sacked by Alcoa and will be replaced by workers on $2 an hour. Where's their concern? It is completely missing. Those seafarers in the parliament, if you'd like to meet with them, just talk to me and they will tell you what an increase to the GST to 15% will do to them as they face the unemployment queue. It's a disgrace. They should absolutely rule out a GST once and for all, but they won't do it.